Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 8th, 2021 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. We will begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everyone here for coming. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Due to the public health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted remotely pursuant to the governor's executive orders, including Executive Order 202.1, which suspended certain provisions of the open meetings law. The meeting is being video recorded and is being broadcast live on the Town of Penfield's website, www.penfield.org, and on the Town of Penfield's Government Access Channel number 1303. It's also being live streamed on several on-demand streaming video channels like Roku and a bunch of other ones.
Apple TV and Facebook.
Apple TV, Facebook, probably more. So you can check that out, probably searching for Penfield, New York. We actually, Lori, please call the roll. Hetzke here.
Bastion here.
Knauer here.
Tidings here.
Burton here.
Sangster here.
O'Connor here.
Weissar here.
Cometh here.
Okay, so we're all here. This is our second public hearing night where we changed up our, I guess, order of business a little bit. That we will be beginning our public hearing immediately following our work session, or very shortly thereafter, versus waiting until 7 o'clock if we finish our work session prior to 7 o'clock. So with that, we can start going through our agenda, and we do have meeting minutes from our March 11th and our March 25th meetings. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to review them, and we could maybe entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve March 11th.
I'll second.
Okay.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastion,
Bastion, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Knauer,
Knauer, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay, that's our March 11th.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 25th meeting minutes.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have it moved and seconded.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastion,
Bastion, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Knauer,
Knauer, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
All right, moving on to our tabled applications. Doug, you want to run through our tabled items and action items?
All right, we don't have any tabled items for you guys tonight, but we do have one action item. Back on March 11th, Kimberly Horn, Representatives Casey was here to propose a new facade for the Target. So back on March 11th, Casey Lieberman was here on behalf of Target at 2161 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road to propose a new facade. The last time the facade was changed was back in 2018. The board did have some discussion regarding that proposal and requested that the applicants provide a couple different options for the facade for that building. They have resubmitted two different facades for your consideration tonight. Both of them are on EFIS. One following sort of having that brick blocked out sort of style looked with a little bit more contrasting colors to make it the facade stand out a little bit. The other being just a resurfacing and repainting of the existing, or smoothing out of the existing facade. We do have Casey Lieberman and Kevin Van Heis from Kimberly Horn Associates on the call to answer any questions.
Okay, so the suggested changes were to infer what they look like from these renderings, from the elevations.
Yes. So we'll also have, like, Brad will bring them up on the big screens for you guys as well. The primary difference is there's more of a reveal on one of them. It is very similar to what you saw originally. They'll do their best to make the reveal a little bit more pronounced so that it doesn't seem to be one solid structural element. It'll break it up a little bit. So that's one Brad has brought up on the screen for you guys. The other one is just to match the existing EFIS and patch over, or CMU patch and paint.
So essentially, the difference between now and the previous time we saw them is 0,
They're very similar.
right?
They're very similar.
Okay.
We did not previously have the second one that Brad has up on the screen, the one that was the previous one. They previously did not provide this one as a elevation rendering. They did in discussion at the last work session on the 11th. They did state that this could be an option, and they provided it as a rendering, as opposed to the one that the other one that we looked at.
So the one that's up, I mean, it's difficult to see here, but this is the one with no
Brad, can you zoom in a little closer to it?
relief lines, or
Yes.
so to speak, and then the other one has some relief lines, but essentially it's a
That is correct.
kind of a take it or
I
leave it.
do
This
believe
is what we're
there's
gonna do
some, I
kinda
do believe
deal.
there's some minor differences in the colors of brown. One is raisin brown, which is the material sample you had last week. The other one is falcon brown, which appears to be very similar. In color, it may be one shade different. Again, if you have any questions, we do have Casey Lieberman and Kevin Van Heis from Kimberly Horn on the Zoom call with us.
Am I the only one that has a little bug up my backside on this? That, I mean, is everybody, if everybody else is totally cool, I'll shut up, but I feel like we spent a lot of time years and years ago approving a nice building. Then they came in and the changes and the updates were also, they were a nice update. And this is moving backwards. It's my feeling on it. And that's why I brought it up at the last meeting. And it seems to me that the message that is coming back is, well, it is what it is. And we're not looking for anything else. I don't know if other communities in the country have other treatments. But I'm 1 out of 5 people with opinions, and I want to hear the other 4. So, who wants to go first? Bob, are you cool with this?
I guess I need a refresher on what the original
Brad, can you pull that up? We have it,
Looks-
it should be in the,
looked like before, this proposal as a comparison again.
inactive projects would be under the 2018. So I'll have Brad bring it up.
Okay.
It'll be under the action items.
Okay, while he's doing that, anybody else
Well,
want
she
to?
mentioned some repeated safety concerns was the reason why they didn't do it. Maybe we ought to ask her what those concerns were.
Okay.
Their thing is,
Okay, Casey, I know you're on the meeting. Welcome to the meeting tonight. And
Hello,
your colleague, I forgot,
Kevin.
Kevin, welcome.
Good evening.
Okay.
Maybe you could explain the safety issues to Mr. Knauer quickly?
Sorry to interrupt, this is PCTV. Casey, could you turn your camera on, please?
Yes, sorry about that.
All right, thank you very much.
So in terms of the safety concerns of the stonewood that's on the building, because of the climate and the weather in this area, there's extreme weathering on this paneling. So that's why, as a safety concern, this was taken down everywhere. Any target that has this stonewood, foxwood material across the front, it had to be taken down because of cracking, and it was just a safety concern. So last meeting when we spoke about it, I was asked to look into other options, alternatives that could have this look. But after speaking with the architect, it wasn't an option because he feared that going through this again with another similar product would have the same exact issue just because of the weathering in this type of environment and climate. So that's why what we have proposed is the EFIS we proposed the last time. And since there aren't any alternatives, the other elevations that were sent over would be set right behind this stonewood material. There is an existing CMU wall face back there. So we would just have to paint and patch that to match the other existing portion on the building. So that those are the two options between EFIS or just paint and patch to match the other facade on the building.
Okay, go
the-
ahead.
So in removing that material, if you could describe, what's that base material, the wall that would be patched, filled, repainted?
Yeah, so behind where you see this metal framing, that is the CMU that's existing behind it. And if you scroll over on Google Maps, if you go to the left side of the building, you'll see that, just keep going, you'll see where the clock is on the building off to the side. We plan to make that match right there if we were to do paint and patch instead of EFIS. But we personally think that EFIS will have a better look to it.
So that masonry, I assume it is basically the base, the back base structure material of that front wall.
Yes.
Okay. And it would just be, again, just filling and painting it. And it looks like it has some texture feature?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But in the last meeting, there was someone had mentioned how they want some shadowing, and that's something that the EFIS could incorporate. And we think that the look of the EFIS will make the building itself have a better look as well. So it's really just between these two and what preferences there are.
So with the fill and paint, though, there'd be no shadowing, correct?
No, it will
Okay.
look just like how it is behind
Right.
this clock.
Okay.
Bill, Jim, any comments?
Yeah, so I asked for some different options with features that would create some texture and some shadow lines to avoid having this expanse of smooth stucco. And these aren't exactly, shadow lines. So, I mean, there's a large variety of facade materials out there. The applicant is telling us that there are only two options. Well, they've only given us two options. There's a large variety of materials that could be used here, and there's a infinite number of shadow lines and applied foam trim pieces that they could put on the ephes material to create a more interesting, visually interesting center area. I mean, this is the entrance to the building. This is what your eye is drawn to. I'm with you. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I don't think they really gave us what we were asking for. Maybe we didn't convey that properly, but there's certainly a lot more than they could do other than put some embossed cuts in this large expanse of foam.
I don't disagree. Jim? Bill?
I'm in agreement with Jim. There's other facade materials that should be looked at. As far as the weather goes, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that we have harsh weather conditions, so that shouldn't be an excuse.
Isn't Target based in Minneapolis?
I'm not 100%
I don't
sure.
know.
I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, I'm gonna assume that that HQ is in a pretty harsh climate.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't spring it on anybody that we have bad winters. So, yeah, I'm not happy with it, to be honest. I'm in agreement with Jim. I think there needs to be more homework put in on this.
So, what do you guys wanna do?
Well, maybe one of the things that we could ask the applicant to do is to show us photographs of some other facades that they have in other climates in similar thermal zones to upstate New York, so that we can see what kinds of solutions that they brought forth in other locations, and we could pick from
So-
one of those.
This is something where, I don't know if we have the answer to this yet, and Pete Weissauer, I don't really wanna put you on the spot, but, a few years ago, the applicant came in asking for something, it was approved. We understand that it's not working out. And the solution, my guess is if we say, hey, come back with something else, they're gonna take the metal studs off and paint the CMU underneath and call it a day, which I don't really consider acceptable. What recourse does the town have, the planning board, for an applicant or an operation that, down the road makes a change that is in contrast or not in keeping with what was originally approved? And if you can't answer that tonight, is that something that you can look into?
Well, that's something I can look into specific for this application, but generally speaking, our code, I'm assuming, I don't have the original resolution handy to look at, but I think that this is, what they're really asking for is in essence a modification to a site plan approval. And so the standards in our code for, the factors of consideration include architectural features and design of buildings. I mean, that's like letter B, so it's right up there in the top as part of the considerations of site plan approval. And so if the planning board, approved and specified a particular material, if they want to change that, then they, my view is that they would need your approval. And it's going to depend on what that resolution says, but, and as far as the recourse, I mean, that's really a question for another day. We want to work with the applicant here to try to make it look nice, and I think you're just looking for some other options here, at least, but I can take that under further review.
Okay. Board members, I don't know, if somebody wants to make a motion one way or another.
I'll move to continue the table.
I'll second it.
Okay. we can certainly do that
Right.
and ask for some additional input or
Yeah,
options.
we'll reach out and we'll have some discussions with the applicant on providing some additional either materials or details that they can do to provide some more visual interest in the target. Also do a little bit of research on the resolution along with Pete and see what I can pull out for your guys for your review.
Okay, good.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Thank you, Casey and
Okay.
Kevin. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. That's all our action items,
That is
right?
all our action items we have for you tonight.
Just for folks watching, it's 5 to 7, and we will be beginning the public hearing portion of our meeting very, very soon. We have 5 items on our agenda this evening. I believe there are two sketch plans and 3 preliminary final applications. If you would like to comment or contribute your thoughts to the meeting, please do one of the following 2 things. Either call the number here at 585-340-8771, and during the appropriate time, I will open up the floor for public comments. And if you call ahead of time, you can get in the queue. PCTV, the control center downstairs is handling inbound phone calls and emails and electronic submissions. So the alternative to the phone is you can submit electronically. You can go on the Penfield website, penfield.org, and on the home page there should be a link right to this meeting where you can type in a comment for us. So with that, again, I guess I will read the little disclaimer statement that I'm supposed to read. That due to the public health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted remotely pursuant to the governor's executive orders, including Executive Order 202.1, which suspended certain provisions of the open meetings law. The meeting is being video recorded and being broadcast live on the Town of Penfield's website, www.penfield.org, and on the Town of Penfield's Government Access Channel 1303, as well as being live streamed on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can search Penfield TV in your device's app store. It's free. And the meeting will also be later transcribed. So, the way this works, if you're not familiar with our process, I believe we're beginning with our 2 sketch plan applications or sketch plans. Sketch plan is an informal review of a concept with the board and with giving the opportunity for the public to also comment on the application or the concept plan that the applicant has. It is not a formal application for a preliminary and final site plan or subdivision approval. It is an opportunity for the applicant to get feedback before they commit substantial resources to a project for preliminary and final approval. With that said, you will likely see a lack of many details on these applications because they are sketch plans and they're seeking feedback. The applicant will present their concepts. The board will ask questions that it wants to ask, and then once that's done, we'll open it up for public comments. And again, you don't necessarily need to wait until I open it up for public comments to call in. Please call in kind of ahead of time to get into the queue so that once we open that up, we're ready to go. And or submit electronically. All right, Doug, please read
All right.
our first sketch plan.
All right, before we do that, PCTV, can I have you bump the audio in the auditorium up just like 1 or 2 notches? The last applicants were a little quiet on our side.
Agreed.
Okay, so application number 1, BME Associates, 10 Lift Bridge Lane East, Fairport, New York, 14450. On behalf of Pathstone Development Corporation, requests an informal discussion before the board with plans for a mixed-use facility including 157 residential apartments in 2 proposed buildings with 30,800 square feet of non-residential space, including a daycare facility and a 4,800 square foot commercial building, all with associated site improvements on a 10.653 acre property located at 1787 and 1801 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. The property is now or formerly owned by WRM Holdings 3 LLC and William Wickham and zoned mixed-use district. Application number 21P-0007, SBL numbers 125.01-1-3.11 and 125.01-1-33.11. All right. On the call with us, we have Peter Vars of BME Associates and Mike Bogajewski of BME Associates, Mira Mezhibovsky of Passero Associates, Robert Kane of Pathstone, Mike Seaman and Gail Morelli of Krista Construction, Pete Wayner of Passero Associates, and Amy Cassiani of Pathstone.
Just so you know, we're not going to remember everybody that's on the call. Please
Peter,
don't hold it against us.
I believe Peter is the lead, and if you'd like to start your presentation, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening. Peter Vars from BME Associates. Actually, just 2 things. If we could actually bring up the site rendering, we would prefer that to start with. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Kane from Pathstone Development first, because I'd like him to introduce this project to the board, explain Pathstone, who they are, what they do, and what their goals for this project are. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob at this time.
Is it
Great. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Rob, is
Yes,
that the
can you hear me
right
okay?
one, or do you want the 3D?
This one works.
Yeah. All set?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Great. So good evening. My name is Rob Kane. I'm a real estate developer at Pathstone Corporation. The organization is a multi-state community development corporation headquartered in Rochester. We have geographic reach of 4 states and Puerto Rico. And every single community that the organization develops within, it looks for the best use of potential development opportunity within the various areas. And part of that process is looking through the comprehensive plan, having a lot of informal conversations, people in the community, and looking at what makes the most sense in this particular area. At first, this development started as a 5-acre development, about 80 some odd units on the former Grossman's property. With that, we looked at and worked with other folks in the community. We responded to some of the early comments from various members of the board and looking at trying to further the mixed-use district goals. Our goal here is really to offer a development that furthers the town's goals as well, while meeting a demand of residents in the community. Throughout that outreach process, we connected with a number of individuals, and our team, that I'm accompanied by with Peter, Krista, Amy, folks at our architectural firm in Passero, really helped us through that process. And so moving from west to east or left to right on the site, we were successful in working with the Wickhams to, get under 5 more acres under site control to really develop more area over here to, best meet the town's needs. And with that, we worked with the YMCA. We're currently working out about 7,500 square feet of programmatic space for a daycare user in that area. They've told us about the great amount of demand that they've had in their various other operations. Throughout the complex here, we have office space to help meet that mixed-use district goal. And then, of course, kind of an out parcel to the far northeast with a potential retail shop that we're working on right now. We're looking at possibly, looking at multiple different retail users on the northeast building there. But overall, that coming back to the goals here are really to provide workforce housing in an area that, is serviced by a lot of retail along the 441 and 250 corridor, in addition to the YMCA. And we've done our due diligence here as far as a market study, third-party reports to look at what does this site could be. And overall, we think we have a really viable type of development here that could aid in further meeting the town's goals to further building out the mixed-use district. With that, I'll turn over some of the project specifics to Peter and Mira to talk. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work you've been, working on over the past few months?
Yes, Rob, thank you. So again, Peter Vars with BME Associates. So as the chairman stated, we are here this evening for a sketch plan review of the proposed development. As it relates to the sketch plan, just some of the particulars of the site plan design is, as we mentioned, the property is 10.6 acres in size. It consists of the former Grossman's Nursery parcel, which is located at 1801 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. And then, as Rob mentioned, they've also acquired or have under option the adjacent to the west 5.6 acres of lands at 1787 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. That 5.6 acres will be actually subdivided out of the lands of Bill and Debbie Wickham. The property is bounded to the north. Those are the remaining agricultural lands of the Wickham property. To the west are lands of the YMCA that are primarily a New York State DEC wetland area. To the south is the Penfield Square development, which was the first development created in the new mixed-use district that the town established in this corridor. And then along the east side is New York State Route 250 itself. Project occupies approximately 430 feet of frontage along Route 250. As we all know, the property is zoned mixed-use district, but what's also important with that, it is designated as a Zone A core mixed-use area. So as Rob laid out, the project does propose a mix of residential, commercial, daycare, and civic space on the 10.6 acres. The two buildings, the larger buildings that you see on the sketch plan rendering before you, those will be the primary residential buildings. They will contain 157 total residential units. It'll be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, as Rob identified, targeted towards not only workforce housing, but family housing, and there will be a small component of senior housing. The first floor of each of those buildings will contain non-residential space consisting of for lease office space, community rooms, and as Rob pointed out, the daycare facility, which is proposed to be on the first floor of the westernmost building. You can see it on the rendering where the drop-off is provided for that daycare facility. As Rob mentioned, that facility itself will occupy pretty much most of that first floor level along the west wing of that building. And to the south of the building would be an additional 5,000 square foot designated playground area for the daycare facility. That daycare facility will be operated likely by the YMCA, and it will be open to the public. And it provides a fantastic use in this mixed use district because it'll not only be there to support the residents of this development, but also it provides daycare for employees of the YMCA and other businesses in the immediate area. With regards, and then the third building, I should say, as Rob mentioned, up at the northeast corner of the property is the proposed 4,800 square foot commercial building. It would be a single story freestanding building. But in addition to these buildings, this project provides over 2.5 acres of public green space, civic space, courtyards, areas that we see actively being used. The focal point of this civic space is, it's right in the middle of the site. It's what we call the pedestrian spine that goes between the two residential buildings. This pedestrian spine would be 16 feet wide. And the reason we use the word spine, it is what everything feeds off in this mixed use development. It is the primary multimodal transportation corridor through the property. It will provide pedestrian access, cycling access. All the features along this spine will be pedestrian scale. And what's important about that spine, it'll be the focal point of over 1 acre of space that's centered around that spine, space that will be clearly defined on the final site plan application as to those types of uses to encourage public use, resident use, even adjoining resident uses. For reference, that 1 acre of space that we have proposed along that spine, just for reference, the Penfield Square project to the south, where the pedestrian spine originates, that public open space is about 3/4 acres in size. So that can kind of give you a sense of scale. In addition to this, this civic space, there are also courtyards proposed within each building. Those would be for residential use. That will be a focal point for the residents and include features for them, including gazebos and picnic areas, playgrounds, things like that. Definitely things to encourage activity and interaction between the residents and also the public. The site plan itself was prepared in being conscious of the 10 principles of design that are contained in the mixed-use design manual. The letter of intent that we provided with this application, our February 26th letter, goes through each one of those 10 design principles and identifies how those principles are addressed within the project design, including the complete street concepts, public green space, strong pedestrian connectivity, architectural style, and site planning. A few of those highlights we'd just like to go over with you this evening is pedestrian connectivity and mobility is a key component of the mixed-use district, and this project we think succeeds in meeting those goals. There are 3 primary north-south pedestrian corridors in this project. The central corridor, the pedestrian spine being the middle, being the primary corridor. And what's important about that corridor is how it continues to, it links up with the properties to the south, Penfield Square and the YMCA, and also is designed such that it, for easy extension to the north as development or projects come online in the future, meeting one of the key goals of the town, which is ultimately having a pure or a distinct pedestrian corridor from the YMCA up to Atlantic Avenue. The project also continues the continuation of the Route 250 sidewalk system. So the sidewalk will be continued along the New York State Highway. What's important about that sidewalk system is, as we're all familiar with, is that sidewalk continues to extend to the south of the mixed-use district. That sidewalk is important for pedestrian mobility because of how it extends out of the district and can provide access to districts and uses further south. The third component is at the west end of the site. It's the extension of the complete street that was established with Penfield Square. It is now known as Penfield Square Road. It is a street open to the public. It is a complete street design of the mixed-use district design guidelines in that it provides on-street parallel parking, provides a tree lawn area, and then provides a definitive 8-foot wide pedestrian and cycling pathway parallel with Penfield Square Road. So in addition to those 3 north-south corridors, as you can see on the rendering, there is also a series of east-west sidewalks and pathways such that the north-south corridors are connected and also provide internal mobility for not only the residents of the development, but also other users that may come to the site either from Penfield Square, the YMCA, or drive to the site because they're going to either the daycare, the commercial spaces, or whatnot. But there is interconnectivity throughout. The complete street design on the west side is prepared such that it would allow further extension to the north, again, meeting one of the key principles of the mixed-use district, which is this complete street running parallel with New York State Route 250, ultimately can be foreseen to link up with Atlantic Avenue, which is one of the key goals of the district. We've already mentioned the mixed uses that are proposed within this development between not only multiple residential styles or settings to meet a couple of demographics for housing, but we've talked about the office space, the commercial space, the daycare space, and the civic space. One of the other key tenets of the mixed-use district that this project achieves is efficient land use and the use of clustering, basically being conscientious of the setting and using those principles in the design. This project at 157 units is at a density of around 14.7 units per acre, which is well within the allowable density of 20 units per acre of the Core A district. The buildings are proposed at 4 stories in height, and they range in height from 49 feet to 53 feet. And Mira, in a few moments, will walk you through the building architecture. The code allows a maximum height of 55 feet or 4 stories. So these buildings are compliant with that. But what's important about the efficient use is these buildings, combined with the third building, the out parcel, results in a building lot coverage of only 14.4%. And that's important because what it does show is we're able to get these multiple uses on the site. We're able to achieve a density that's desired to bring the residential mass in to support the commercial and non-residential uses, but do it with a very small development footprint. And that small development footprint is further exemplified by this plan and you can see it in the rendering, the amount of green space on there. This plan provides over 5 acres of green space. It's almost 50% green space. So what we believe is that this layout takes full advantage of the Zone A core mixed use standards to create a development of multiple uses in scale with the district, while minimizing the development footprint and, like we said, providing almost 50% open space. Moving beyond some of those mixed-use district design guidelines and tenets, just briefly to walk you through the project layout. Project will have access to New York State Route 250. As you can see on the rendering, there's access at the northeast corner. That's the existing driveway curb cut that serves the Grossman property and the Wickham property. We will continue to use that curb cut and extend a private road into the site. And that site will provide access to the parking areas and to the public space and to the commercial buildings. It links up with Penfield Square Road along the west property line, as we've already mentioned. Penfield Square Road is a road open to the public and is an extension from Penfield Square. What's important with that road is that road, if you're familiar with it, does link up and get out to Route 250 at the signalized intersection between the YMCA and Penfield Square. So there are 2 points of access, public access to this property off of Route 250. In addition to that access, internal circulation is provided. As you can see on the rendering, we provide the necessary emergency vehicle access along the east side and the south side of the buildings. Parking on the site is provided. There are parking for 252 vehicles. That's based on an allocation of 1 space per residential unit. That was arrived at through our consultation with Pathstone based on their history of operating multifamily, multi-residential buildings as to what their parking demand is. It allocates 20 parking spaces for the commercial building. That's based on the code requirement of 4.25 spaces per 1,000 square feet. We've allocated 25 spaces for the daycare in addition to the drop-off area. And that leaves 47 additional spaces for the first floor non-residential users and the public civic space. And it's also important to understand in mixed-use development, obviously there's the opportunity for shared parking because of the offset of demand between the residential workforce housing, leaving the area during the day and thus providing more parking for the daycare use, the public use. And then obviously with nightfall as residents return, the public space may be not used as much or the businesses closed. So we feel we have a very adequate parking plan here. Last couple of things for myself is the project will be served by public water coming off of Route 250. Public sewer will be provided to the project from an extension from Penfield Square at the south. Obviously, the final site plan would include a complete comprehensive stormwater management plan that would be prepared in consultation with the town engineer's office. We also have been in contact with the New York State Department of Transportation. The final site plan application will include a complete traffic study, as would be required of a development of this scale. So with that, I am now going to turn it over to Mira, who will walk you through the building architecture.
Hi everyone. So I am Mira Michbowski. I am an architect with Pesser Associates, and I have pleasure working with Peter and the rest of the team on this project. Designing this building, we are complying with Town of Penfield planning design standards, and the standards require that buildings should complement the surrounding area and create visual interest and continuity. And that is a very important goal, and we addressed it completely, I believe, in our project. Our site is located next to Penfield Square and YMCA on the east side, and farmland on the east side of Route 250, and farmland with farmhouses on the opposite side of the road. So we have a very contemporary building of YMCA. We have a more traditional development of Penfield Square, and we have a rural farmland with farmhouses across the street. So we have everything around it. So with design of our buildings, we were trying to fit within all those styles, not argue with them, but complement them all. The building footprints, as you can see, Peter, can we call? Okay. The building footprint are a mirror of each other. You can probably see it from that rendering. And that the shape of the footprint is actually dictated by the site, by the angle of the road, and by orientation of the site. The courtyards are oriented to the south of the building, which will allow sun into those courtyards, and the main facades are oriented towards the north of the building. To create visual interest, we made a point to design those two buildings differently, so that facades do not replicate each other. The building closer to the road has a flat roof and contemporary elements of design. But the second building that's located further east and at a lower grade, because the grade slopes away from the road, is designed with a mansard roof, which is like part sloped roof. And that building looks more traditional. A rooftop terrace at the easterly building is on the east side, and that terrace will allow tenants to take advantage of the beautiful views of the farmlands on the other side of Route 250. To complement the buildings surrounding our development, we introduced building materials that kind of reflect them. So red brick at the ground level reflects materials and colors of YMCA. The basic materials and colors of the building up above are basically neutral, kind of like the Penfield Square development, but then we introduced accent barn red color panels that will reflect the colors of the farmhouses across the street. And to visually break up the building meshing, the facades provide changes in the planes, in addition to the changes in the color of the materials. We are discussing this project at the very high level now, so I don't know if we should get into the different materials, but basically the idea is to use very durable materials like face brick, fiber cement siding, and fiber cement panels, and very transparent glazed entrances. I think that is all I have for now about building architecture.
Great. Thank you, Mira. So AJ or Mr. Chairman, we would open it up to you for any questions that you may have for any of us from Pathstone, Krista, Passrow, or BME.
Okay. Peter, Mira, Rob, thank you very much for your initial presentation. And we will begin our interrogation. Bill, you want to start?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Peter, one of my big concerns is the access to and from the site, because now that signalized intersection is being shared with YMCA, Penfield Square, Pathstone proposal, and a proposal for the east side of Route 250. So have you given any thought, I mean, and you also have a second access to and from with a non-signalized driveway that's currently there for Grossman's. 250 is becoming busier and busier. So have you given any thought to extending an access to the north, to Atlantic Avenue? And do you have any concerns with that one intersection? Because that's going to be very, very busy in the near future. It's already busy.
Yeah, I'll give you the short answer to that now, Bill, but it's obviously something we'll address within the traffic study that's submitted with the final site plan application. But obviously, extension to the north to Atlantic Avenue is not feasible because the property is not under the control of the applicant. There's actually multiple property owners between this site and Atlantic Avenue. But I think the important thing is that intersection along with the proposed intersection in the north will be addressed in our traffic study.
Okay, all right. A second concern I have is it seems like one parking spot per apartment building might be a little bit light. So I would give some thought to that. You got 157 units, and you've also got commercial space, you got the daycare center, you've got office space, but I think you said you got about 220 parking spaces total? Roughly?
252.
252? So that's also a concern of mine. The child care center, in the letter you provided, they said that would be run by the YMCA. Has that been negotiated?
I'll let Rob answer that at this time.
Yeah, so it's very high level right now. We've worked with the YMCA to the extent that we're accommodating their design at their they have a new daycare location out in the Pittsburgh market, and so what we've been doing is working with them in good faith. No contractual relationship. It's something that we're both striving to meet. But at the end of the day, if the market doesn't provide that, And they have other needs and we have other needs. That's where we currently stand right now. You know, they are comfortable with us sharing with you, of course, that they are interested in this. We asked that specific question, and that's, I think, that best describes the working relationship right now with the YMCA.
Okay, thanks. What would be the targeted income levels for the apartments?
Yeah, I mean, crystal ball question. Everyone wants to know who you rent to, you know. To be honest with you, I don't know if you have rental units or if you're a landlord, but whenever you go out to rent to people, you have income qualifications, right? Yeah, your income has to be, you know, a third of rent in order to live affordably, you know, or however you want to underwrite those individuals. So in this case, you know, I wish I could give you a specific answer, but you know, generally, you know, income levels, you're looking at workforce population, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 a year to low 60s. You know, throw a dart at a dartboard and you tell me.
Okay. Will this be a phased project? Are they going to build all 157 units? Are you going to build one building and then the other building, or is it too early to know that?
We'd like it to be all at once. Possibly looking at a phased lease up, but everything would, when we would close on the construction, it would be for everything.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, AJ.
Okay. Rob, if you don't mind sharing some of the concepts of some of the commercial space, like in the outbuilding. I know that I think the first floor of each of the structures is kind of set aside for more retail, office, commercial. How do I even ask this question? One of the things that has been sort of a chicken and egg thing for us for the entire mixed-use district thus far, and COVID has just made it worse, is that, well, which comes first, the commercial development or the housing units? And how do you, can you maybe go into a little bit how you plan to address that? What's your vision of that?
Yeah. Great question. So of course it is always the chicken for the egg, and a lot of times, you know, you need a certain critical mass to support enough retail. A lot of times you need enough traffic, which we all know, you know, 250 is a very highly, you know, driven road. So with this, we envision, you know, a multifamily being the primary customer, mixing in office space, you know, in one of the buildings to be another customer, so to speak, or tenant for Pathstone. And then finally, you know, the out parcel, you're hopeful to attract some sort of retail. You know, right now it's a little hard with the pandemic. You know, you kind of look at other users within the space, potentially being a pizzeria shop, something that's a quick, fast cash, in and out. But honestly, at this point in time, it's so early and you really don't see what type of interested potential tenants arise until you start having, you know, sticks up and roofs on, so to speak. So a lot of times we do have limited to no commercial tenant input and interest until, you know, you see construction activity. At that point, that's when you start seeing a lot of calls coming in. We do have an office user that we would not want to disclose out of, you know, confidentiality purposes. You know, same thing with the retail user. We have one that we're working with right now out of fear, and we don't want them to, you know, move down to another space. We very much want them to stay on site, and we're very hopeful that they do. So unlike the YMCA, they, you know, did not want to disclose that name publicly.
Okay, so you do have active, I guess, active interest at least.
That's right. That's right.
And in terms of the way the buildings are laid out, with the pedestrian spine being such an integral part of, or maybe I should say that the pedestrian spine is becoming an integral part of the entire district, And it's almost like a main street. This site plan seems to create a sense of maybe too much openness around that. If I might be, as you know,
That's fair.
maybe
Peter,
I'm.
do you want to take the response on this? I know we went a lot of back. There's a lot of back and forth on this, and Peter, you can articulate it much better than I can.
Yeah, AJ, it's a good point, and I think part of that, I'm going to use the word perception, is because of I'm going to use the blandness of this rendering. Because the point is, we have begun working on some concepts of the use of that space. And once you start introducing those uses, I think that's what's, which would come with the final site plan application. That's when we're going to start seeing that actually this will actually become a vibrant space. Well, how we see this, and it was discussion we had early on, was it's going to be a little bit different than Penfield Square, where that spine comes right up along, the Episcopal Senior Life building, where it's almost like a street. We see this more as a concept where those buildings, that front, if you want to use that word, spine, those are likely going to be residential uses. So it's more, you're going to get the feel of a residential neighborhood, but it's going to have this park space in between. But when we talk about park space, it's not just going to be a blank green space, which is what's happening in Penfield Square. We see this actually being designated with activity space. We've talked about dog parks. We've talked about, some type of courts, whether it's pickleball courts, volleyball courts, something but basically things that would encourage activity. And so I guess what I would say is we appreciate the comment. We'll take it under consultation, but I'm almost going to say, give us the chance to show how we can use this space, because I think once you see that, the space actually becomes the right size.
Okay, so if I'm imagining a future 5 years down the road, I want that space, that pedestrian spine, to be one of those areas in our town that people want to go to and want to walk. So that when you walk down there, there's interesting things to look at. It's not as if you're walking through some barren wasteland. I know based on your answer, I know you know what I'm talking about, and it was
Exactly,
a good answer.
AJ.
So,
yeah, AJ, we know how important this is to you and to the town. And I think one of the concepts we've talked about, and you may recall this too, I'd ask you to think a little bit of some of the concepts of like what the canal path does, is that when the canal path gets into developed areas, how there's, bump outs, I use that term, the pocket park things where there's gazebos, and that's why we said pedestrian scale amenities that will encourage people that when they're walking this, like I said, we see this as an area that links up with the other uses that are in Penfield Square or even the YMCA, such that to us, it's variety. And I think the variety is the important thing that will give this spine its uniqueness, but completely understand where you're coming from there.
okay. What were some of the other questions that I had? Any thought or discussion with the appropriate authorities about the fire access, and does it actually need to go all the way around where we have basically two fire access roads parallel to each other, one on the south property and one on the north property, that I feel like I beat a dead horse talking about the porous material that you could plant grass through and have it look nice. You just from an aesthetic standpoint, but still keep the functionality.
So I can tell you to date, we have had discussions with the PRC and specifically with the fire marshal. Because of the size of the buildings, the four-sided access is required by the code. And even the separation of the fire lane, or I should say the proximity of the fire lane to the building is dictated by code. So, you know, while it may look odd, there really isn't an opportunity to share access to the south. Primarily, you know, again, that's an adjoining property, but also there is a Monroe County Water Authority transmission main through there that's prohibitive to any construction over that.
Okay, so that's why you couldn't move the buildings further south?
Correct. So I guess, and that comment did come up through the PRC review with the sketch plan review. So that is something and the fire marshal said he does want to review it with the fire chief. So we'll continue to have those discussions as we advance the site plan forward to the final application.
Okay. I reserve the right to keep asking questions, but I'm good for now. Who wants to go next?
I will.
Okay.
Okay, getting back to one of Bill's comments, the north access, I'm thinking that's not too many feet from where Sweets Corners Road comes out. So I don't know if there's been any discussion or if there's a way that those could actually align and that would create another intersection. It may improve traffic flow. I don't remember from the layout and where Grossman's was, but I don't think it's too far off distance-wise.
So I will, again, a short answer on that is we had a discussion with the town engineer and with the PRC when we were first laying this out about that north access road, about it being a complete street. And it was the decision at that point that it would not be a complete street because the desire of the town is that a complete street connection would be made to form a four-way intersection with Sweets Corners Road. It is one of the identified connection points in the MUD. Unfortunately, I should say, well, maybe that's not the right word, but that is not property under control of the applicant. The Grossman property line is south of that intersection, as you can see on the aerial photo that's brought up before you. So we just don't have access to that intersection.
Okay.
But the design has been prepared that when and if if there is a four-way intersection provided there, that this design could be modified or, you know, that such that a connection can be made to that complete street also.
Okay. From the elevations and from what Mira reviewed, building 1 has a flat roof and building 2 has sloped roofs. I think it was described there might be a roof terrace. Would that be on, I assume, on building 1?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
As you can see, right along 250 in that rendering. You can
Okay.
see
You can also see that, Bob, on the east elevation number 1 on page 1A.
Yes,
Where it's kind of in the center of the building.
in the center. Okay,
I think that's a nice feature, by the way.
yeah. Okay, and then one other comment, some of the other mixed uses are also incorporating electric vehicle charging stations and bike racks. I guess would ask if that's your, future intent, future plan.
So yeah, that's something we can consider as part of the final site plan application. We'll identify any of those, if those features will be provided.
Okay, you know, given the number of the number of people here, a lot of times, people with electric vehicles do most of their charging where they live. I think that's the way things are changing, a feature that should be included. Thank you.
Okay. Terry,
Good.
you got- you're good?
Thanks.
Jim, any comments, questions?
I am taking copious notes so that I can send a fan letter to Mr. Vars at a later date.
Thanks, Jim.
Be careful when you open that letter.
I have to check my spam filter.
That's right. Okay, what I'd like to do is open it up for public participation at this time. And let me just reiterate that if you are watching and would like to call in and make a comment, please call us at 585-340-8771. Operators are standing by to take your call. You can also submit an electronic comment via the Town of Penfield's website at www.penfield.org. And at the moment, I am not seeing any calls or electronic comments. It's not to say that I am an IT wizard or anything, but I believe I'm able to tab through these pages effectively enough to see that there's currently no comments. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. So has there been any thought to, I see a structure in the center, right in the smack dab in the center, the equipment shed. What's that equipment shed for? Is that for, say, like sporting equipment and things like that for this recreational activity area, or is that mechanical rooms for lawn mower storage and that type of thing? And if that's the case, why is it bullseye center of the property?
So that'll obviously be better defined and refined with the final site plan application. A component of it would be for on-site maintenance, but there have been some initial discussions of that structure could be some form of function in support of what the uses are in that green space. But as we refine those uses, that'll better define what that structure could support, it could provide.
And architecturally, it will match and complement the other structures on the property. Well, we'll make sure of that.
Yeah, similar materials.
Okay. Okay. Let me just check one more time here. Looks like we have no one in the queue. Just so the people watching at home or wherever you're watching from, we will keep this portion open for probably 7 days. This is not an actual preliminary final hearing, so they most likely will be back for a preliminary final hearing, and there will be another meeting very, very similar to this with slightly different drawings and plans, but with significantly more detail on them. And so feel free to make comments really at any time to the planning department, and the phone number there, if you want to call during the day, is 340-8640, correct? And there's very friendly people that man those phones every day. And so you can feel free to do that, or you can write a letter and send it via the postman, or send an email to planning@penfield.org. And with that, Peter and Posse, thanks for the presentation. Very nice job. You, Mira, Rob, and we will be drafting a letter with our comments, as well as probably comments that trickle in from the public. Most likely will be included in that letter if we get them. And you'll probably see that, I'm going to guess, within the next 2 weeks.
Great.
All right?
Appreciate it. Yes, thank you very much, everybody.
Sure. Thank you, and have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night, all.
Take care.
Okay. All right, Doug, we can go on to sketch plan number 2. If the participants from sketch plan number 1 want to bounce off the Zoom call, you're welcome to do so, and at least mute and get rid of your video. And sketch plan number 2, please unmute and show your faces to us if you would. And Doug, go ahead and read sketch plan number 2.
All right. D.H. Lewis Engineering, PLLC, 3832 Corey Corners Road, Marion, New York, 14505. On behalf of Eric and Susan Stroyer, request an informal discussion before the board with plans for a 5-lot residential subdivision, 4 new lots when existing, with associated site improvements on a 15.416 acre lot located at 1030 Plank Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Eric and Susan Stroyer and zoned rural residential RR1. Application number 21P-0009, SBL number 94.04-1-32.11. I believe we have Don Lewis as well as the Stroyers on the call with us.
Okay.
Good evening. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, Don, floors, computer, whatever we call it now, it's all you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. My name is Don Lewis. I'm with D.H. Lewis Engineering, here with the Stroyers. I think Eric's being represented as well. This property is located on the north side of Plank Road, just west of the Schutz Apple store, if people are familiar with that area. The Stroyers currently live in the property at the center of the 15-acre parcel, plus or minus 15 acres. Their intent is to subdivide the existing acreage into 5 residential lots, 1 being the existing house, 2 frontage lots on Plank Road, and then 2 lots in the back, 1 for Eric and his wife, and 1 for their son, the 2 larger lots in the back. The lots range from 1.6 acres roughly to over 4.5 acres for the 2 in the back. Along with this, they're going to convey a parcel along the right-of-way, 25 foot wide. I think on my plan it might show 50, but it was actually supposed to be 25 foot wide to the neighbor to the east, Joanne Mostowski. That was an agreement they had. She approached them because she had some intentions of doing maybe some additions to her house. So they were more than gracious to try to work out a deal with her at the same time while they were doing the subdivision. Over the late fall, I was able to get the locations that you see for the 4 proposed septic designs approved, tested and approved as far as the soil composition and deep hole composition with the health department. And the designs and locations you see on the plan are what's required for those. I only submitted the sketch plan, again, like you said, for the purposes of the board to review it. I have also sent this out to the county DOT for their cursory review as well. Like I said, the health department is already aware of what's going on. The parcel will have access to municipal water. The two lots in the back will have a combined driveway with an easement and maintenance easement that has the utilities and as well as the gas and electric that would be brought back there with the turnaround access for fire safety. There's ample site distance for the proposed locations of each of the driveways along Plank Road. I believe all the water services would have to be drilled under the road to meter pits or, curb boxes and services to each of the houses. There's no stormwater management, so to speak, because we're under the threshold of the 5 acres for the residential and the 5 lot threshold that the town adheres to. The area in the back is wooded, so the owners are going to be very selective as to what trees they're going to remove, because that was the whole idea of why they wanted to build their houses in the rear. So the front 2 lots are pretty wide open. If you've been by here, not that aren't trees on the property, but it's not heavily wooded, but there are trees on the property. They're pretty attractive lots as well. Aside from that, I guess I open up for any comment from the board.
Okay. Terry, you
Yeah,
want to
thanks.
start off?
Yeah, Dan, okay, so the plan is to sell off lot 2 and 5 initially, and then,
Correct.
is that correct?
Correct. Much like any, personal or homeowner developer, so to speak, that would help them generate costs so they could, provide their own, the engineering services for this and do their development at the back.
Correct. Okay, and then they're gonna sell lot 1 and build a new home in the back there, either on 3 or 4?
Correct.
Son, correct. Okay, no variances are required, correct?
Correct.
And you've taken a look at all the PRC comments, any issues with those?
No, none at all. None at all. The I was explaining to Eric about the contribution to the sidewalk fund, and and I think there was a comment about the 2 trees per lot as well. So trying to explain that you either paid into the fund or installed the sidewalks themselves, correct?
Okay.
Is that how that works?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So, because, trying to explain.
That's actually up to the town board,
Yes.
whether if
So-
they grant the sidewalk waiver, then you
Okay,
pay
I
into
mean,
the fund.
well-
But that's a town board, not a planning board decision.
Okay. I mean, just because you see other developments down the road and you're like, well, how come they didn't put in sidewalks? And, it's one of those things that kind of catches you off guard a little bit.
Enough said.
That's right.
Okay, who else had that one? Yeah, I think that was it for me. Okay, thank you very much.
One question that I have is the Lot 2 driveway, have you thought about combining that with the flag lot driveways and just have the one additional curb cut on the west side? Because those 2 driveways are pretty close together. And
They are close together. I mean, that would be something that, the Stroyers, I could discuss with the Stroyers, but their intent, like I said, is their son is going to build on what I'm understanding is lot 3. Eric and his wife are building on lot 4. So it's kind of like their shared driveway, their maintenance responsibilities together. And then the other one would be, a third party that they would sell off to. It kind of keeps the, easy to partner up with a family member than it is to have to share responsibilities and easement requirements with someone that they don't know, I guess.
yeah, we certainly can appreciate that, but let's say move ahead 75 years.
Right.
And Mr. Stroyer, while you look young and spry, 75 years from now, you may not be around, and that may be owned by somebody completely different. Both properties may be owned by somebody completely different. So even if the two are owned by related parties, there will need to be official documents, easements, official things filed if they're separate tax parcels. Because we can't just count on, oh geez, it's me and my son forever that own this. We have to
Understood.
make sure that we
Understood.
plan for the future.
Understood.
Okay, anybody else from the board have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I had one question. It looks like on the septic systems, 2 are raised fill and 2 are absorption? Is that
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
All right, and then one other, that area to be conveyed is 25 feet, not 50 feet, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. That was brought to my attention too. We went through many iterations with Eric and his wife, and it was my fault for not having it. But I have it changed on my plan here at home. It'll be 25 feet. That's correct. So that just shifted. It just shifted the lot lines a little bit. That's it. It didn't affect it doesn't affect much of the overall plan.
Sure.
It just changed a little bit with lot 5. They got a little bigger. So.
And it's a 25 feet contiguous to, I'm just joking. Obviously, it's contiguous, not. Okay. I'd like to open this up to anybody in cyberspace out there that wishes to comment. That means anybody watching from home or wherever you're watching or hearing. I don't see any comments right now coming in. Nobody's on the phone. Just give you 340-8771, area code 585. And we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so for if somebody wants to call, they can have time to dial in and get connected downstairs. And downstairs, if you get a phone call, if the phone starts ringing, please let me know right away. Do you have a time frame while we're waiting for that? Do you have a time frame as to when you'd want to start building the properties in the rear?
I think Eric wants to start tomorrow. If he had
Okay.
a choice. With the way the market is right now, I think he'd be a little scared to put his house in the market for fear of sell quicker than he could build
Right.
it. So,
Yeah.
but I know it's his intention to move forward, as quickly as we can get the approvals on this.
Okay. All right. We currently have nobody calling in or making electronic comments, so thank you very much for your presentation. It's, for what this is, your submission to me was more detailed than expected, so, it was nice, and
We're pretty close right now. I mean, I was pretty confident, but I wanted to go through we wanted to go through the proper channels to make sure. And this is much like one that's right to the west. There's a couple of lots the same way that someone divided up into similar type settings. So
right. Okay. Well, no further questions from the board or from the folks at home. Thank you very much for your presentation, and have a great night.
We'll see you next week. Thank
Just
you.
like the other one, we'll be sending you a letter in the next week or so.
Sure.
Okay?
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
guys.
Yep. Bye.
Okay. On to preliminary final number 1, agenda item number 3.
All right. Costitch Engineering, DPC, 217 Lake Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14608. On behalf of JJ&A Development, LLC, requests under Chapter 250, Article 12-12.2 of the Code of the Town of Penfield for preliminary and final site plan approval for construction of a 6,200 square foot building with associated site improvements on 2.43 acres located at 2070 Empire Boulevard. The property is now or formerly owned by JJ&A Development LLC and zoned Limited Business LB. Application number 21P-0008, SBL number 093.02-1-1.121. We have Paul Colucci and Nate, the architect, representing tonight.
Okay. Paul Colucci and Nate. Hey, how about giving us your last name?
Nobody wanted to try a name with two Z's? Rozzy.
Rozzy. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
I'm just trying to throw Doug under the bus with that one, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Whoever goes first. Floor is yours.
Thanks, AJ. Good evening, everybody. Paul Colucci with the DeMarco Group, presenting on behalf of JJ&A Development. Joining with me is Nate Rozzy. Nate's the architect for the project. We are presenting the redevelopment of 2070 Empire Boulevard. It was previously developed as a restaurant back in, I believe it was mid-70s, originally built as a Perkins restaurant, repurposed as a town walls, and it's been a vacant property for approximately the last 6 years. The proposal includes a 6,200 square foot single-story building. It was aligned and positioned in the former footprint of what was previously a restaurant building. The overall proposal plans to utilize the existing access point from Empire Boulevard, the existing developed area, including parking. We are proposing new curb around the building to delineate the parking and the pedestrian access to the building. Utility services, including sanitary, water, will be reutilized. Existing storm will be reutilized and connections made to those existing services. The proposal is for a single purpose medical use. It is a use that we are very close to being able to identify that user, although given the fact that they are undergoing board approval on this specific site, I can't name who they are, but they are a regional medical provider. We met with PRC, I think back in early February, presented this project at the Wednesday Project Review Committee. Overall alignment is in pretty much the exact same location. We received comments from PRC, responded to those. We've also received comments from the county planning, and there was really no impact based on those comments. We're really not affected by county planning as it relates to any of the actions that they typically look at. So it's a pretty straightforward development. We hope that you see the repurposement and utilization of the site as a benefit. We've long been looking for a tenant, and we're pretty happy that we have this opportunity. Nate can give you a quick rundown on the building, and then we'd be happy to open it up to questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Nate.
Great, thanks. So as Paul said, this is about a 6,200 square foot facility, 1 story for a healthcare user. Materials are durable and neutral, and they're attractive. They consist of brick, simulated stone, cultured stone, and aluminum. This is consistent with other buildings in the area, both in the materiality and the massing. The building's within the height limitations set by the code. The majority of the building's approximately 19 feet tall, with the entry element being approximately 23 feet tall.
Does that include that metal architectural element at the top, the 23 feet? Or is that?
No, that does not.
That? Okay.
That would be a few feet higher.
Okay. Probably curved, perforated metal, maybe, with color changing lighting underneath it? Maybe?
Could be.
Okay.
Could be.
Just checking. Keep going.
So there's a parapet on the building that is strategically located to help conceal the rooftop mechanical unit. We provided some response to the PRC relative to that for sight lines to that mechanical unit, which especially in medical uses can be large and prominent. So we've taken steps to conceal that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Open
Thanks,
for
Nate.
questions or back to Paul.
Yeah, that's really it, AJ. Hopefully, the application was complete. We addressed, like I said, we addressed comments and sent responses back, and be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Okay, great. Bob, how about,
Sure.
you get us started here tonight?
Paul, Nate, the number of parking spots that are on that site, could you review or comment on that? Because they seem to be more than might be required for this type of use.
Yeah, you gonna park Amazon vehicles there or something? What's the story?
There is not any intent to park any ancillary uses there. We have maintained the perimeter of the existing curb and parking in its existing configuration. We are gonna mill and resurface that lot as part of this application. We did respond and send, based on a size building with medical use and employees, we anticipate, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 parking spaces needed at peak demand. We know that there's in excess, but we prefer to keep it in its existing configuration at this time.
How many are there?
There's 98.
So you have twice as much parking
2X.
as you need.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Bob.
That was all I had.
Okay. The size of the parking lot to us, well, to me anyway, and probably to the rest of the board, they can all chime in themselves, does seem significantly more than is necessary. And one of the questions that we have, we had heard a little bit that the portion of the property, I guess it would be the southeast portion of the property, may be utilized for a utility type purpose that would take away some of the green space on the parcel. And would you consider, let's say the western portion of the parking lot, just as a consideration of maybe getting rid of some of the pavement along Empire Boulevard, turning that into something nice green space and not having that big mass of, wintertime donut spinning opportunities?
Yeah, the previous building was angled in parallel to Empire Boulevard. And given this particular site, we looked at it with the tenant and they wanted to be parallel. They wanted to create a little bit more space from the entry throat to the parking spaces that are proper to the front of the building. There has been discussion with a potential utility use that could subdivide off a piece of this property. There is no deal in principle at this time. There's also a discussion for a complementary use to that utility use that would be taking the vacant parcel to the east of us. And at that time, if those deals come together, we will be subdividing the parcel. And we would look at making sure that any development that occurs would not create a non-conforming lot, given this existing proposal that we have before us. At this time, we know one thing's for certain. We have a lease out. We have an approval pending at a board level with this user, and they want to move forward. So at this time, we're looking to just try to maintain the existing parking. If we were developing this from a green site, I think we would do things maybe slightly differently. but given the existing perimeter, the existing parking, the way drainage is maintained, where site lighting is, we're trying to minimize the extent of site work necessary as we've kind of sized the rent with this particular user based on anticipated cost to develop this site. So we know that there is a surplus of parking. There's potential that the use that could happen to the east would need access through this parcel, just given the geography that's there and the drainage course that runs and kind of bisects the property. So we don't really want to reduce pavement at this time until we know that there's what those future uses could potentially be.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Bill?
I have one on the dumpster enclosure. What is that material proposed to be?
Yeah, at this time, it's going to be a board-on-board fence with a gate. So
It's going to be, it'll be wood or?
Yep, it'd be a wood board-on-board fence.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, before I ask Jim or Terry, I just want to make the public aware that if you want to comment, you can call 585-340-8771 or go to penfield.org, homepage of the website. You can make an electronic submission as a comment on the website. You can also email the town for pickup at a later time or call the town of Penfield Planning Department during business hours, Monday through Friday. So, Jim and Terry, any questions, comments?
Paul, I'm sorry, Paul, you didn't have any other problems with the PRC comments? Did you address them all, or?
Yeah, we did. We sent a response back, and I could run through them with you if you want, but I think, you know, of material items, they asked for a sidewalk across the driveway, which we provided.
True.
Label snow storage areas.
You don't have to go
Okay,
through
yeah,
every
don't have to
single
go through
one.
all of them, Paul. Okay,
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah.
make sure you
I know
saw
Mike and
them,
Doug
you
are there,
addressed them.
but
Okay,
yeah, I feel like we adequately addressed them. There wasn't anything that we felt was not able to be accommodated.
okay, thanks. I'm sure they'll be letting you know if they don't agree. Okay, thanks.
Jim, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to note how ironic it is that Mr. Colucci is actually advocating for more pavement. That's something new that we're hearing from him. And I saw the same thing you did, AJ, and I seem to want to ask whether or not there's merit in providing an alternate plan for some land banking of future parking. So it's outlined, it's delineated, it's there. There are some areas on the site where you don't have built-in pole lights that you're going to mill the whole thing anyhow. It makes sense to us. Anytime we can increase green space is a good thing. So just wondering if there's some merit in maybe offering an alternate plan. And between now and when we get to the the end game, maybe you'll have some of these other arrangements in place. And
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, again, I mean, it's really trying to work with the existing site. We're actually, I think, slightly decreasing the amount of pervious that was there previously, just given the position of the building and adding that green area. The building used to have circulation all the way around it, and drive lane all the way around it. So we are slightly less than existing. But it's very much consistent along Empire Boulevard. You know, as you well know, if you travel a little bit south, you would see very similar types of lot arrangements. And given this was an existing developed site, and we're looking to, put it back on the development list and properties that are adding to the value of Penfield versus a vacant lot. We're just trying to keep within the confines of what was previously developed from the exterior perimeter of the parking limits.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not entirely opposed. I just thought I should put it out there that, you know, if you see an opportunity to add some green space, you know, that would be received favorably by the town.
Sure, understood. And I think when we know what these other uses are going to be and how they, what their needs are going to be, we're gonna certainly be looking at potentially having to do such as you're talking about, you know, maybe sacrificing some of the parking that we know is surplus in some of these future redevelopment scenarios.
Fair enough.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, I will open it up to public comments. At the moment, I don't see any. And either it's a very quiet night, our ratings maybe have gone down. I don't know whose fault that is. Terry, maybe your fault?
Yes, I know, definitely.
For driving the ratings down. But, yeah, we all's clear, or our internet's down or something at the town hall and the phone lines. If that's the case, then you're gonna have to call in tomorrow. Okay, so we have no public comments. Paul, Nate, appreciate your presentation. I think that, yeah, I mean, the I think I can speak for everybody on the board, the sizable pavement is the biggest glaring thing, but I also understand that it's already there, and if it's already there, if I'm you, it's, well, I want to leave it there. So I do get that, but we would love additional green space. So with that.
That's a great point. I mean, we are adding, like I said, we are decreasing impervious a bit, and I know we didn't flip to it, but there is a pretty generous landscape plan that is really gonna, I think, accentuate the project. The previous use was 70s vintage and updated slightly in the 80s, and you know, now with that aerial, you kind of saw what we're left with. So I think this is really going to be a nice addition to what is the last property in Penfield before you cross the line.
Right. Okay. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Nice job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And we
Thanks, have a nice night.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
AJ, before I go, you guys will be deliberating at the end of the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, to kind of wrap things up, it won't be a super long discussion, but definitely we'll, you know, you're welcome to hang out if you want.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 4, public hearing, preliminary final number 2.
Okay, application number 4, Apple Osborne, 102 West Division Street, Suite 100, Syracuse, New York, 13204, on behalf of Penfield Central School District, requests under Chapter 250, Article 11-11.2 of the Code of the Town of Penfield for preliminary and final subdivision approval for the subdivision of land for the purpose of future construction of a combined transportation buildings ground facility on 47.1 acres located at 1364 Jackson Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Bernard F. Berry and zoned rural residential RR1. Application number 21P-0011, SBL number 095.03-1-35. We don't have anyone from the school district on Zoom with us tonight, and I would like to remind everyone out at home that this is an application for subdivision approval only. There is no site plan approval that they are coming to the town for or looking for, so the scope of the planning board's review will be limited to the merits of the subdivision.
Okay, so we have no applicant here.
We have no applicant here to discuss the project with you. I'll go through it with you guys, just to give you an overview.
So essentially, it's a invisible line creation to change and subdivide one parcel into two.
That is correct.
And one thing that we do not have jurisdiction over is what the school district, since they're their own taxing authority and they don't answer to the town.
Yeah, ultimately, site plan approval for the school district is handled by the New York State Education Department, with the planning board, or the Penfield Board of Education acting as lead agency.
Are there any, there's no variances required for subdivision? The lots will be fit within the zoning district? There's no
Yes, that's
substandard lots? Anything that is related to an approval of a subdivision that may be non-standard, out of the ordinary, anything that's not following all the proper guidelines?
The only thing we're going through with them is there is an existing drainage channel that does run throughout the property. We're trying to work with the school district to get an easement across that drainage channel so that the town of Penfield can come in at a later point and do some stream cleaning through there. I think we were recently just through it with the DPW. I think they just cleaned out that stream. But whenever we have the opportunity, we do like to see if we can get easements over drainage channels so
Sure.
that we can provide that feature.
Well, that certainly could be a condition of the approval resolution.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments from the board on this application?
No.
Jim?
I don't have any problems with this, AJ. This is pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right, is there anything else that you need to say regarding this? I mean, there's nobody from the applicant decided to present themselves, so it is a pretty straightforward thing.
Yeah, the subdivision is relatively straightforward. Like you said, it conforms to zoning. We did go through and ensure that, Ben Berry was retaining enough property for the accessory structures that he has on site and to continue his agricultural operation. He does fit within that. Both lots are greater than what is required by code. So there's, it's pretty
Okay.
straightforward on our end.
Okay. And why don't we, you know what, I will open it up for public comment.
We
And,
do have a call, let me, give me a couple seconds to patch it through.
okay. While that's happening, I have 4 comments that have been submitted from Ken and Catherine Page and neighbors, 249 Panorama Trail and 251, 259.
I think that's for the next application.
That's the next one. Oh, yeah, Quarry Lane, got it. Okay. I suppose, sorry, folks, I should have looked all the way over to the right before I mentioned your names. I'll mention them in 10 minutes. Okay, so we do have a call. Is it?
He said stand by, he's gonna connect them through to you guys.
Just another second.
Okay.
AJ Order.
Okay.
Ask for the caller to go.
You're just asking
All
for
right,
name and address for the
caller,
record.
please, if you would, introduce yourself, give us your name and address, and then we'd like to hear your comments.
Hello?
Hello, yes, downstairs, if you guys could turn the volume up for the caller, that would be terrific, because we can barely hear her.
Yep, she needs to speak for us.
Hi, my name is Linda Schriever, and I live at 1420 Jackson Road.
Okay?
I heard your comments about this being just an application for subdivision. I understand that, and it does seem like this is perhaps an only opportunity to have my concerns heard about the possibilities of putting the transportation center at Jackson and Plank. I've spent a fair amount of time looking through the documentation provided by the school district for the traffic study, and the amount of increased traffic on Jackson Road, according to the study, which was done in 2017, meaning that it's maybe a little bit out of date, but it looks like there'll be an additional 200 to 250 trips of buses, maintenance vehicles, other vehicles up and down Jackson Road. I guess my concern is that Jackson Road is frequently used by walkers, joggers, bikers, and there are no sidewalks along the road. The timing of the bus travel will actually coincide with when I see most of the joggers and bikers and myself walking around the road for exercise and recreation. So I'm concerned about the pedestrian safety on Jackson Road with this increased traffic level. And I just wanted the town to be aware of that. Potentially there may be a need for sidewalks or something in the future if we want to maintain that as a viable area for people to use for recreation.
Okay? Go ahead.
My second concern around the traffic is that there are a number of vehicles that exceed the speed limit on Jackson Road, particularly the intersection of Jackson and Plank. If you're headed southbound on Jackson, there seems to be a lot of people that like to use that as a nice point of acceleration to make their trip down Jackson a little faster. And we're the first house south of that intersection on the, what would that be, the east side. We frequently come down that way and have to slow down to make a left-hand turn into our driveway. And we have actually been hit by people who, or by a person who was trying to pass us because we were going too slow for them. And there was an accident filed, and we had to total our car. So I have a concern about the safety of what it's going to be like with a bunch of school buses going up and down that street. We actually called the Monroe County Highway Department and asked to have them put double yellow lines up there when the street was resurfaced a number of years ago, and they just kind of ignored me, I'll say. Maybe I'm just one squeaky wheel, but with the number of buses that are going to be going up and down that street, I think it's something that ought to have some attention.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I believe that the town has asked for a sidewalk easement on that frontage, and hopefully that will go through. And hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn for the town staff, but I think that I can say that there is kind of a sidewalk master plan, and little by little, the town is trying to add sidewalks. There is, while I'm not totally sure of what the exact priority is or how it's determined, there is a prioritized list of where sidewalks go and when. Hey, we have this money that came in to this fund, so now we can put the sidewalks in this next section that was designated in the list of places where they're putting sidewalks, determined whenever that was. So I'm sure that this area is somewhere on that list. Where that falls on the list, sorry to say that I don't totally know, but I do know that we have asked for a sidewalk easement as part of this. And also, we as a town, the planning board, and I think the town in general, don't really have any power or jurisdiction over what the school district does, or what, say, the post office does, or many other, let's call them governmental agencies. They don't answer to us. And while we can certainly empathize and sympathize, because we live in these places too, there's not a lot that we can do about it. And I would say that hopefully the school district has public hearings with the school board, and they're open to public comments. So thank you very much for your call, and have a great evening.
Thank you for listening.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Does not.
AJ, I have another phone call for you.
Okay.
Mr. Cushman.
Okay, please identify yourself with your name and address, and love to hear your comments.
Okay, good evening. Steve Cushman, 1152 and 1154 Plank Road. I'm calling to voice my objection to the proposal. I understand your concerns about lack of control over the development of the property, but as a subdivision proposal, this would be fine if we're talking about building homes. Now, as you know, directly across the street, I think was very recently, you folks addressed the issue of a 4-lot subdivision directly across from the proposed bus garage. And then on Plank Road, you have that other subdivision that's going in which they're in there cleaning out the trees and the bush at the present time. And you're proposing now to subdivide this property to allow for the construction of a bus garage, which is not a residential. As a rural residential area, this is something that should be belonging down, say, behind Panorama or Plaza in some other commercial area. So, again, I just want to voice my objection to the proposal to subdivide this for something other than a residential area.
Okay. Duly noted, and thank you for your comments.
Okay, will do.
All right. Have a good evening. I believe we have some additional electronic submissions for the next application. And Brian, do we have any more callers on the phone?
We do not. You are clear.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your comments. We appreciate them. It's one of those things that we will do what we can do. And let's move on to public hearing. Item number 5, Preliminary and final, application number 3.
All right. Labella Associates, 300 State Street, Suite 201, Rochester, New York, 14614, on behalf of the Rochester Institute of Technology, requests under Chapter 250, Article 12-12.2 and Article 13-13.2 of the Code of Town of Penfield for preliminary and final site plan and conditional use permit approval with site plan improvements and modifications of existing parking areas, installation of sidewalks and additional parking space, minor site lighting, a storm drainage system, erosion control features, garden and greenhouse, and storage shed on a 150-acre lot located at 100 Old Quarry Lane. The property is now or formerly owned by the Rochester Institute of Technology and zoned single-family residential R120. Application number 21P-0012, SBL numbers 123.15-1-1 and -1-4, 123.19-1-22, and 123.11-1-79 and -76. We have Dan Brock from Labella Associates on Zoom with us, Marilyn Schreier from RIT, and Dave Brault from RIT. On the line with us. Just one thing to note, since they made their application to the board, they have sent in a formal request, which was provided in your drop, to ask that they withdraw the conditional use, modification of the conditional use permit portion of their application. They're not going to be looking to do or modify what they're asking for outside of what was approved in the 2019 Zoning Board of Appeals application resolution, which allows for educational uses only.
Okay. Who wants to start the presentation?
I will, thank you. Good evening, members of the board and residents of the town of Penfield. I'm David Bro.
We have Dan, Marilyn, and Dave.
Can you hear me?
One of you like to go first and describe?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave. Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, good evening, members of the board and residents of the town of Penfield. I'm David Bro, the Director of Operations for RIT's Tape Preserve. I am joined tonight by Marilyn Schreier, RIT's Real Estate Manager, and Dan Brock from Labella Associates. We're here to discuss our plans and intentions for the property at 100 Old Quarry Lane and address some concerns raised by the board and community members. In previous meetings, we have shared our goals for the property, which center around use of the site for the purposes of education, ecological restoration, and as a gathering space for the RIT community. As our plans have matured and in response to community feedback, I would like to address 5 specific areas of concern: noise, events, lights, public access, and watershed function. After providing information on these topics, we will be happy to answer questions related to our application for preliminary and final site plan approval. All right, we're gonna start with noise, and I won't bury the lead here. We are not seeking to play any outdoor amplified music. No DJs, no speakers, no loud events. I wanna repeat, just so that's clear, we will not be having any outdoor amplified music. We are not now, nor have we ever intended to turn this space into a commercial event venue for the general public. Eliminating outdoor amplified music should serve as proof of our intentions. Any music played inside the building will be at a low dinner music volume, and we are confident it will not permeate into adjacent properties. The building does include many overhead doors that can be opened, thus turning the space into an open air pavilion. We will be extra careful during those times and make sure that no music or noise will be produced from inside the building that would disturb neighboring properties. At all times, we will be conscious of noise ordinances detailed in Town Code Section 250-7.6. And again, we won't be having any outdoor amplified music. For events, as I've said, we won't be using the location for any loud parties or events, but it is a special venue and we do still want to use the site in ways that fit with our mission. These events may include meetings, workshops, presentations, and lectures, all of which are allowed and covered under our current conditional use permit. The types of users may be faculty groups, staff groups, and registered and supervised student groups. There will never be any unsupervised students on the property. All events must be registered ahead of time through RIT's event management system, which is a web-based platform for the RIT community to request use of campus space. Someone looking to book the space must be a current member of RIT and has to answer a series of questions to justify their request. Any request can be denied if it is determined to be unsuitable or inappropriate for the location. During the registration process, the necessary support groups are also notified and scheduled, such as tech support, catering, and most importantly, public safety, who are available to be on site during events. All events will be managed so that there are no detrimental impacts to the Penfield community. On lighting, as part of our site plan, we're seeking to modify our drive lane and install additional parking. The purpose is to safely accommodate our guests with a formal parking area and to ensure that there is adequate access for emergency vehicles, especially fire trucks. In the parking area, we are seeking to install a small number of downward-facing, night sky compliant lights on posts roughly 6 feet above ground. These lights will be turned on and off manually and only used when needed during events. They will not be on every day and never on overnight. Regarding public access, some comments have been received regarding public access to the property, specifically to areas around Arundequoit Creek and Ellison Park. This land is not now, nor has it ever recently been public property. Excessive pedestrian traffic poses a very real threat to the delicate riparian zone, which we are seeking to protect. There are also serious liability concerns over having the general public on our property. In addition, trespassers have left terrible amounts of garbage, have damaged and destroyed posted signs, cut down trees, and even mowed trails on land that's not theirs. These actions seriously interfere with our ability to conserve and utilize our property. At this time, we must prioritize RIT's use of the space, and that requires that we keep it private and not allow any public use or access. We encourage residents to utilize the many public green spaces in the area and ask that they please not trespass on private property. For the watershed function, we are keenly aware of the vital role that both Arundequoit Creek and Redmond Lake play in the regional watershed. We want to ensure members of the board and the public that we are alert to the importance of these resources and are doing everything we can to maintain and improve them. We have a proven record of working with both the town of Penfield and the DEC to make sure we're managing these resources properly. Our plans only impact these water bodies in that we're seeking to improve them. We're seeking to install drainage features that will mitigate runoff into the lake, and we are vigilant in keeping the creek flowing clear by removing debris and blockages. We're not planning any installations or constructions that will interfere with the role of the lake or the creek in the watershed. We also recognize the creek's important role in supporting fish species and will remain cognizant of that important factor while planning any work or activity. All projects that even remotely include the lake or creek are reviewed by RIT's Environmental Health and Safety Department, as well as the town of Penfield and the DEC. We understand that the proposed changes to how the site is used has given pause to some community members. I hope that with this information, it will be clear that we are here to support the educational mission of RIT, to preserve and protect our natural resources, and to utilize the property in a way that will not negatively impact the community or environment. Again, I want to emphasize that we will not be producing any amplified outdoor music. We are not seeking to use the space as a commercial event venue. Lights will be minimal and only on when needed, and we will always partner with the relevant agencies to protect the natural resources on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more parts of your presentation, or are you opening it up for us?
Well, at this time, Mr. Chairman, we are in receipt of PRC comments that we received on March 31st. I have issued written responses. I can go through them one at a time if needed, but I can generally say that we've agreed to everything that's in the PRC package.
Okay. Yeah, you don't need to go through every single one of them.
It's mostly engineering in, it's all engineering. So we'll be submitting revised plans and all the applicable calculations that the town is requesting.
Okay.
If you'd like, I could run through the site improvements quickly.
Sure.
I know most people have seen the plans, but I'd be happy to talk about it. What you're looking at right now on the screen is the main bulk around the existing building down there. starting up at Old Quarry, or at Old Penfield Road, we're going to install a storm structure system with gutters going down the road. As everyone knows, the grade change is quite steep going down that road. They've had problems in the past. Previous owners have had problems in the past with heavy erosion control or erosion features on that. So RIT is going to install something that's going to last and help mitigate, slow down the speed of the water as it hits down the bottom and to reduce the flow of sediment into Redmond Lake. As you go down to the existing building, most of the improvements, in fact, all of the improvements that you see around the building are done for a few purposes. One is for fire accessibility. We're widening the road so that a emergency vehicle has a proper turn radius. And we also are installing additional ADA parking closer to the building. The existing site does have a gravel area just off to the west, southwest. That could hold about 100 to 150 cars, I guess, if you packed them in there. What RIT is trying to do is put some parking that's closer to the building to provide safety. Again, ADA accessibility. We've got 4 ADA spaces that are close to the existing building itself. But in addition, we're going to be adding 51 parking spaces just on the south side of the loop. I'd like to add that the parking spaces that we're adding are going to be, they will not be pavement. They'll be what we call grass pavers or permeable pavers. It's like a heavy geogrid that is placed, filled with topsoil, but it's got a heavy stone base. So you can mow it, you can plow it, and maintain it. It will be irrigated to make sure that it lasts and keeps up with the traffic. But RIT is trying to make this site a nice green and blend in with the natural environment that's there now. In addition, there's a couple small features. One is the garden, well, not so small, but you see the garden off to the right. That garden, we currently do have, I will add, an application in front of the zoning board requesting a variance for an 8-foot-high tall fence where 6 foot is required. Basically, around that garden, we'd like to have a 6-foot-high agricultural fence with a 2-foot base above that holds 2 wires, strictly to hold deer out. And we are requesting to have no trespassing signs that are larger than what the town code allows, just 4 signs, mind you. Not everywhere, just 4 strategically placed. We were in front of the zoning board and they wanted to wait and hear what the planning board said. So they requested that we come back after this meeting. So the garden there is strictly for the educational purpose of the site. There's not much to talk about there. It's going to have a bunch of raised planters. There will be no vehicular access to it. It's just going to be pedestrian traffic. And there will be no additions to the exterior of the existing building, except for we're going to have to put in a new fire pump in the back and I believe a generator pad behind the building. There are some minor renovations, well, there are some renovations going on the inside of the building, which include the addition of a sprinkler system, an improved HVAC system, and they're going to take the garage and install restrooms. But the main interior is going to remain the same. It's mostly a mechanical change, except for the addition of the bathrooms. And that is the bulk. Dave did mention lighting. I will want to add, we are just proposing some lighting that lights up just the sidewalk area. You see there's a sidewalk along the additional grass pavers. And then we're also showing a few light poles from the overflow parking, as we've been calling it, but that's the existing gravel area along the west side of the property. Just as a safety feature. And just to reiterate what Dave said, those lights will not be on all the time. They will be on only when needed and never overnight. That is pretty much a quick rundown of the site improvements. And I believe, unless Marilyn or Dave, you have anything else, we could open it up to the board for discussion.
That's good.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will say that the grass pavers, I've been hoping that somebody did that for 15 years here. And so I love that idea for the parking. And I can't wait for everybody in the community to see how great they turn out and how well they work, so that they're used for all sorts of other things.
RIT does currently have the grass pavers installed at our Henrietta campus, and they're holding up really well. So we're excited to install them here.
Do they get plowed in the winter?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I believe they'd have to be. If they're there as a fire lane or there for parking spaces, then they'd have to be plowed.
They are plowed. Some of the plowing equipment has a rubber edge on the plow blade, so I know they can use that in places. They might use regular plow blades as well. So they hold up pretty well.
Good. I would love some sort of testimonial to that I can use for other applications here when my suggestions are rebuffed by those who generally know more than I do, which is most people, about this stuff.
We'd be happy to provide an update on their performance in the future.
That would
More
be
than
great.
happy.
Okay, thank you for the explanation about the changes in withdrawal of the changes in the conditional use permit. I think that has probably made a number of neighbors very happy. And the couple of questions, I guess, that I have. In terms of the lighting on the sidewalk, are we looking at bollards, like 3-4 foot high bollards that illuminate the sidewalk, and then the same thing, or maybe residential type scale pole fixture for the parking lot?
Yes. Yeah. Right now, I think we're picturing, Dave, I believe it's a 6-foot pole with a ornamental residential head on top, very similar to what's already there as you come down the private drive. It's a small LED light. It's there just for safety purposes.
Okay.
RIT is really trying to make sure that all these improvements blend in with the natural surroundings.
Okay. All right. You explained the fence. That's really only to keep wildlife out?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions from the rest of the board?
I'm good,
this
thank
time?
you. No.
I have one. It's just informational, but for the grass pavers, how do you delineate the parking spots?
That's a great question. So what they do is, if you're familiar with the grid system.
They use yellow grass. Yellow grass in the line.
No.
I should have known.
And you got to repaint it every time you mow it.
But it keeps
what they
kids
do is
employed.
they have
Work study.
they have colored delineators, which I'd be happy to supply the board with the cut sheets for them. But they provide these colored delineators that you can put in spaced along the lines. And what they do is they fit right into the grid system. They click right in. They sit low like a sprinkler head, so you can mow right over the top. And it's something that you can take on and off, so if one does break off, they're easy to add again.
Okay, I was just curious, so that's why I asked.
We're very excited to install this many. I've installed them before, but not this many spaces, so I'm pretty excited myself to see them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jim, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good, AJ.
Okay, so we have some comments from some of the folks watching. I will read some of the first ones, and we have someone on hold. So As I started to say mistakenly for the previous application, Ken and Catherine Page and neighbors at 249 Panorama Trail and also 251, 259, 267, and 269 Panorama Trail. Their comment was, please see my email from 3:05 PM today. So we must have received an email.
We did receive an email.
Probably
3:05.
came in too late to be printed and provided to the board. But let me assure you that these comments will go to the applicant as well as to the board and town staff. So thank you very much for submitting them. We also have a comment from Ron Berry and Mike Toohey at 60 Canyon Trail. We were pleased to learn from RIT that weddings and events with outside amplified music will not be held at the Tate Reserve. We ask the planning board to codify this as a condition of approval, which we can certainly address in any such resolution. And we also have Ken Page on hold at 249 Panorama Trail. And Mr. Page, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's please go ahead and tell us what your thoughts are.
Okay, so I did send an email, and I understand that it was a little bit late to be printed out. I wanted to get with my neighbors here, the Neighborhood Association. And so I am speaking on behalf of my own household, 249 Panorama Trail, as well as 251 Panorama Trail, Brad Lansman, Loretta Petrellis, Mike and Sean Hakiel at 259 Panorama Trail, Mark and Ella Leventhal at 267 Panorama Trail, Mark Cruz and Teresa Sarkis Cruz at 269 Panorama Trail. Although Mark is also watching this tonight, the other neighbors have other plans, and so he may. Mark, you can chime in yourself here. Anyway, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm delighted. I'm sure my neighbors will be delighted that RIT has gone back to their original intention to have this just as an educational institution and to be very cognizant of the ecological impact of whatever they do. We were very concerned that there would be bands or DJs, amplified music outside, and I want to thank RIT very much to making the decision to not have that be the case. That is excellent news. I appreciate that. You're being a good neighbor. We want to be good neighbors as well, and so I do have a particular request. We are just east of the Tate Reserve. We're up on the cliffs, kind of overlooking you guys, so the sound is going to be a big issue. But the only way that we can inspect the cliff adjacent to our property is by walking down below and then looking back up. Mark and Teresa Cruz at 269 Panorama Trail, they have very, very significant erosion on the cliff just below their home. Thankfully, I do not. We're the two adjacent properties to the Tate Reserve. The other neighbors are adjacent to us, between Mark and myself. So I would, neighbor to neighbor, would just request that we be allowed, adjacent neighbors be allowed to walk on your property for the purpose of inspecting these steep cliffs to make sure that we don't have an erosion problem and our houses don't end up down in the lake. So I'd ask you to take that under consideration. If you'd like to meet with me in person or the other neighbors, we'd be glad to have you over. The other item is I would like to encourage RIT to communicate directly with neighbors, especially those that are adjacent to the property. We're
a friendly bunch for the most part, and we would welcome regular communication about the tape reserve, about what you guys are doing to preserve the ecological and just the beauty that is there. This is an amazing asset in the town of Penfield, and it's why we live here. And so we're very open to receiving any news from you guys. Third item is, I understand that you're going to have night sky compliant lighting for your new lighting. I would ask that you do it for existing lighting as well on the property. If you take that under consideration, I'd appreciate it. In my email, I had 7 points. I believe all the other points were already addressed by RIT, and again, many thanks.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Page, thanks for the call. Good points, and we will pass them along. My guess would be that it'd probably be wise to contact Dan or Doug or Dave, I'm sorry, and Marilyn individually for the discussing going on the property to look at your property. I'm not sure if they're in a position to answer that right now. They may be, but my guess would probably be best to contact them offline. Would that be an appropriate statement on your behalf, Marilyn and Dave?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the call. Thanks for the comments. Yeah, inspecting your property to, erosion is certainly a serious issue on that part of the property, around the creek and other locations, something that we take very seriously. So certainly we recognize and empathize with your concerns there. Coming onto the property to inspect the cliff, that's something that we could arrange, and that kind of ties in with the communication. So I'm the guy on site here, so I'm more than happy to communicate, like we've said, and like we really mean. We do want to be good neighbors. We want to be a good part of this community. So certainly I'm happy to communicate all of the things that we're doing here. We're excited about the possibilities here and what we can do in terms of preserving this. Yeah, you're right. It's an absolutely fantastic resource. So certainly I think we can arrange some times potentially to inspect the property. That will have to be sort of a sanctioned thing. It can't just be a free-for-all. So so that'll be, yeah, we'll communicate, and we can arrange something like that to make sure that you guys are taken care of too. Yeah, and we'll always communicate the goings-ons out here. The lighting concern, yep. So that's a valid concern. That's something that we can look into as we're doing upgrades to other lighting. It makes sense to have things be matching anyway. So appreciate the comments, appreciate those points, and those are things that we can look into.
Okay. We also have another caller, Ed Linskog from 40 Willapond Way on hold. So if, Brian, you could patch Mr., I think I'm saying your last name right, Mr. Linskog.
Linskog.
Yeah,
you know me.
Through, that would be terrific. Are you there?
I am here.
Okay. Downstairs, if you could increase his volume a little bit, it'd be terrific. And go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Thank you. Ed Linskog, 40 Willapond Way, a member of Penfield Trails Committee, which is part of Parks and Recreation for the town of Penfield. An item that hasn't been discussed by anybody, Arundecoit Creek is a navigable waterway, and we have a boat launch area behind Tops Market. We do conduct float trips down Arundecoit Creek, which would take us through the middle of our IT property. The other item is we're looking for a 10-foot strip on their extreme eastern border for them to donate to the town to allow a footpath around their property to get us from a Panorama Plaza to Ellison Park.
Okay.
Okay.
You still there?
Yeah, no, I'm just making some notes, Ed.
Okay.
So, you're asking for a 10-foot strip around would that be the southeast perimeter?
That would be the eastern border of the property, that's correct, the one that's closest to Panorama Trail. The town also has access to that border too from Panorama Trail.
That property, the town property doesn't go all the way down to the creek. It actually ends.
No, this wouldn't go down to the creek. This is along their extreme property border. Which is where the town butts up. We're not looking to walk along the creek because it's not a viable option for us at the present time.
Okay. That's, took some notes down. Ed, do you mind sending in a letter or comment in this regard?
We can do that via the Trails Committee, yes.
Okay. Terrific. Thanks for the comments.
Would you like me to address those comments?
Sure.
Okay. So first point on the navigable waterway. Yes, you're correct. It is a navigable waterway. Our property, so what we own both sides in the bottom, but the waterway, if someone wants to bring a kayak or canoe, they're entitled to travel the waterway. Or we will not try to do anything to stop you from using that. That's how it works. So as a navigable waterway, it will continue to operate that way. We just ask that your boaters don't step out of their watercraft. If they're standing on the shore or standing on the bottom, then that's then they are on private property. So we'd ask them to stay in their watercraft, but if they do need to travel that portion of Arundequoit Creek, that as a navigable waterway, that is allowed. On the walking path, part of that area, that's some really steep terrain. It goes right up against other property boundaries. We could receive your comment in writing, but at this time, we're trying to conserve our property for the use of RIT. And as we figure out how to use it, it's just not something that we're interested to do right now. We need to preserve our property and prioritize RIT's ability to use the space. Also a 10-foot strip, unless it was fenced, people start to wander real quick, and you might think that some people will stay on their 10-foot strip, but many will not, and they'll start to go down to the creek and explore other areas. So it's that's not something that we're able to entertain at this time.
We're certainly willing to fence it if necessary.
I will take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, that was our last caller. We have no more written submissions. You can give it another couple seconds. Any other comments from the board regarding this? Any final thoughts from you three?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
I believe, I like the way this has come together.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me just quick check one more time, just in case. Nope, looks like we're all square there. So thanks, very nice presentation, and we will take everything that we've received, and we'll be tabling this tonight, but taking action on it probably at the next work session, assuming everything is in order and we have all the information that we need. So, thanks a lot for your presence tonight, and
Thank you.
have a good weekend.
Do you need us to attend the work session?
You're welcome to. It's a work session, so it's not open to participation necessarily,
Right.
unless there's something that we want to ask and you're there to answer that question at that time. But you are more than welcome to log on to the Zoom meeting and be there.
Well, we'd be more than happy to make ourselves available in case there's any lingering questions.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Jay, this is downstairs. Can you hang on just a second? We have a phone call and just need to determine if it's someone who wants to make additional comment.
Okay. Looks like we have another potential caller. This is where we need music.
You want me to sing?
Yeah. Can you sing?
PCTV does
No,
have some
If you
holding
can
music.
sing, go right ahead.
Anybody can sing. It's all right.
You don't love that public domain holding music?
Okay, looks like we have Mark Cruz on the phone. Mark, are you there?
Ryan's setting him up. He'll be right there.
Okay. Jokes? Anybody have jokes? I have a bunch, but not for public consumption.
Yeah, I think we got Mark on the
Okay,
line.
Mark, you there?
Yes.
All right.
All right, this is Mark Cruz, 269 Panorama Trail, neighbor of Ken Page, who you listened to earlier. I just want to follow up on the soil erosion issue. In particular, there is a trail going from Panorama Trail down towards Ironquoit Creek and terminates, I believe this is all town of Penfield land, at an old sewer access point. And there's been some bulldozing and tree cutting activity there, and I'm not sure if that's just general town maintenance or if it's associated with the RIT property improvements. My concern is, as Ken described, we have quite steep banks running down there. So any soil movement, tree removal can have a great impact on our property and with soil subsidence and all that. So I'm very concerned that we'd be at least notified if there's going to be any activity like this, just so that we can take that into account, see if there's any potential issues on our property with any potential soil movement and loss of our own land.
Okay. I think I'm being told that that's a DPW project.
Yes.
And
That's not
maybe
RIT.
Doug can
Yes,
expand upon that.
DPW has been out there recently, and they likely will be back out there. Like you stated, it was previously, the town did have a sewer maintenance facility or a sewer treatment facility along the side of Panorama Trail there. They were going in and they've been doing some filling of old structures.
Yeah, and right now all the activity seems to be far enough away from the base of our property, which is, quite steep and quite high there. So I would just hope that no further encroaching toward our property line would take place.
No, they're
without
just
taking stuff like that into account.
Yep, they're going to be staying right within that area. There was, I believe, there was one or two actual structures that were there back in the 1960s that are no longer there, but there's still some remaining sewer structures that are being
remediated.
Remediated, yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye. Okay. With that, I guess I guess I'll check one more time here. Looks like that's all we have this evening. Again, thanks for coming. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll call this hearing closed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
All
Why
right.
don't we, everybody okay to just move into quick review and?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's in a position to go into much detail tonight, but do we want to work backwards, or do we want to start with number one and work forwards? Anybody care?
I don't care.
Nobody has a strong opinion? Why don't we,
Chairman's choice.
let's work backwards.
Okay, you want to start with RIT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This 10-foot strip around the perimeter, I get why the Trails Committee wants that. I don't know. I think it's something that we should ask about, and I also am a believer in private property rights, so it's a tough decision, or it's not a decision. Tough situation.
AJ, I don't think we should be advocating for somebody to grant easements or access rights to somebody else. I think we should stay out of that. If they want to try to negotiate something with RIT, let them approach RIT. And if they're willing to enter into an agreement, fine. But I don't think that's planning board business.
Okay.
It certainly doesn't benefit the entire community at large.
Other than it would be a trail for, I guess, the public to go from one place to another, right? It's be connecting Ellison Park to.
So there's a small park behind Panorama Plaza, Panorama Valley Park. It's mostly a fishing spot as well as a kayak launch. There's also a kayak launch on the southeast side of Ellison Park, there along the creek as well. So there are two sort of portage points that are not on the RIT property, but you can connect between them via the Rondequoit Creek if you're a kayaker. So you could get from one point to another as a kayaker or canoer through that, on the water. But there's no physical, right to get out of your boat. I mean, you do have emergency portage rights. So if you spill out of your boat, you can get back in, or if there's some issue, your boat starts sinking, you do have certain emergency portage rights, as far as I'm aware, with a navigable waterway. But, you're really supposed to stay in your boat if you can.
In the past, we have made it a condition of approval to grant easements for the trail committee. But in this particular case, I would not be in favor of that, because it is a sensitive area, and I think there's the opportunity for people to take advantage of that to, quite honestly, to fish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ecologically, it's a sensitive area, and so I think it's a situation by situation, and I agree with Jim. In this particular case, I think that would be between the trail committee and RIT, not us.
Okay. I
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other things that are staff has, board members have, before we start putting together a resolution?
Staff is still looking at, their move to withdraw their modification of conditional use permit was something we received fairly recently. Staff is still reviewing that to see Andy Sevegas is the authorized official on the zoning side, our authorized zoning official on behalf of the zoning board. Taking a look at whether their current request, in staff's opinion, fits within what was previously approved by the zoning board. If the planning board is interested, it could be something where either there's a coordinated review or it's sent back to the zoning board, since they were the ones that originally did the 2019 zoning board approval. But just taking a look at whether what they discussed tonight and the uses that they sort of stated in Dave's presentation to us, if that fits within what was previously approved by the zoning board. So we're still looking at that, and we're going to continue to look at that for you guys.
Okay. All right, so anything else that we need to discuss before we table this?
I don't think so.
All right, I guess I'll move to table.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay.
School district.
School district, Jackson Road. I don't know what there is for us to do on this. Do we have a?
We have a Part 2 EAF. I've started a draft template resolution, but I have not completed a resolution in time for this meeting. Ultimately, it is a compliant subdivision. Any comments that the public may have, they can direct towards, regarding what is developed in the future. Residents should direct that to the school district and the Board of Education, since they will be the lead agency on any site plan improvements. But as far as the technical merits for a subdivision, staff believes, it meets all the requirements for a subdivision.
Right. Okay, so why don't we start preparing that for potential action in the work session?
Okay.
Do we do the EAF tonight, or do we do it all at once? Does it matter?
Pete, does it matter if we do the EAF, approve the EAF separately from a resolution?
I think it's better to do it all at once.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we, hey, Jim, this is yours. You want to do the honors of motioning the table?
So moved.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay, the urgent care, the medical building. Gee, I'm really surprised Weissauer there. I get the fact that, hey, the parking lot's there right now, why get rid of it? That's something that we should potentially, how's everybody feel about that? Let me ask that question.
I think we have an opportunity to increase green space. We should, period. They don't need the parking.
I agree. This is the main quarter. We've been pushing it forever, so, and I'm sure they realize that too, so I think they'll work with us. I think we gotta go that direction.
Yeah, so I have a question for Doug and Mike. They're tearing down the existing building, they're removing the site improvements, and they're basically reconstructing this site. Doesn't that trigger a green space requirement?
So
it meets the green space requirement.
It currently meets the green space requirement because they do have that large section of property that is along Seabury Boulevard. They knocked down the building, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. They came in and got a demo permit. They were hoping that having an open pad would be more marketable than an old restaurant. So the building's been down for a couple of years now. But they still comply with green space. I believe on our plan, they're at like 50.2%. And it's largely because they have about 3/4 of an acre of land that runs along Seabury Boulevard to the south. That's, sort of behind the adjacent properties to this. That is currently open and green, and that's where most of their green space is.
So I wonder what happens to that if they end up carving some of this up for utility purposes.
Right. Right, and do we address it now versus then? You
I mean,
know,
I
you have
just-
a nice new refinished parking lot that's huge, that needs to be broken up a year from now.
Yeah, I thought it was a relevant question. Why don't you just consider land banking? If you want to be able to accommodate some additional future parking spaces, land bank them. I mean, developers have been asking us to do that forever.
Yeah, I think it's probably because it currently exists, I would think.
Well, it currently exists, the sheet drainage works, the pole lights work, I get it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily deny them the application if they meet town code. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but.
Right. Agreed. You guys
I'm in agreement.
agree with that?
I think so. They're in compliance.
Okay. I say we reiterate the desire to increase green space and maybe reconfigure the parking lot.
We can
Give it a shot.
ask that as a condition of a tabling resolution.
Yep.
To see if they're willing to modify the parking to increase green space.
And any other things that we need to put into that?
I just had to ask about the dumpster enclosure.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like wood boards on wood boards. They don't last. They get broke. They look like hell after a few years.
With other applicants, we've asked that it be something more durable.
Right.
To match the building,
Yeah.
for instance.
This particular applicant came to us a year and a half or 2 years ago because they wanted to change a dumpster enclosure from what was originally approved to wood. Not far from this location, if you remember. And we granted them permission. Doug, you remember that application?
Yeah, I believe that was the Verizon multi-tenant building. What was
Yeah.
the original Beale Street
That was in that back, it
restaurant?
was in that back corner.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a shared dumpster location.
Right.
So I think with this particular developer, they're pretty good about maintaining their properties. You know, I don't much care for the wood either because it just gets beat up and, you know, it looks like heck a year after it's up, but, we did grant them approval for a similar, enclosure.
Okay. It's definitely something that we could put in the tabling resolution, though.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, anything else need to go in that before we ask Bob to move to table?
Table.
Everybody good? Okay.
Go with you.
I'll move to table.
And I'll second it.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay, sketch on Plank Road.
Everybody good?
I don't really see any. Question is why they come for sketch? Why not just come in for preliminary final?
We always leave it up to an applicant whether they want to come in sketch or preliminary final. Usually, I mean, any larger applications we do guide them towards
Understand that, but
sketch
this is-
plan. But for something like this, it's usually up to the applicant what their comfort level before the board and whether they're comfortable with, coming before you as a preliminary final and doing
All
that
right.
right out of the bat.
Make the motion to
Send a letter
send a letter at this point,
that we're,
get together
they
a
have no
resolution.
issues.
Yeah. So you
Somebody
need a
want a
motion to
second?
table it right now?
No,
Or
just send a letter.
Okay, Bill. Okay.
Yeah, make a motion to issue a
So,
sketch letter.
moved by Tidings to send a letter, seconded
I'll
by
second.
Bastian.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay. The mixed use. What's it called? What are we calling it?
Pathstone.
We've been calling it the Pathstone
Okay.
internally.
Obviously, we gotta send a letter to them. Any initial comments from the board? I would potentially say if everybody has comments or whatever, we could delay until the work session to finish putting the letter together, give everybody a chance to
Take a look.
take a look at it.
Yeah, I think we should do that, AJ, for the same reason that we did that with the one across the street. There's a
Yep.
lot to take in here, and, you know, we just heard an awful lot of testimony tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So why don't we, actually, we really don't have to do anything with that.
Yeah, if you guys would like to
Take
just
no action.
table it, table any action. I
We
mean,
can-
it is an informal review, so I don't believe tabling is necessary.
We
I
can,
think we
you
did
know what,
that
how about
previously.
we move to begin drafting a sketch plan letter for
That's good.
additional review at the work session.
That works.
I'll second that.
I'll move it.
You just did.
I'm gonna have to listen to what you said on the thing, know what you said.
It's, we are beginning to draft.
The
The
sketch
motion
letter.
is to commence drafting a sketch plan letter for continued discussion at the next work session.
Got it. Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Bastian,
Bastian, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Canower,
Canower, aye.
Tidings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay. That's all we got. Any other business before the board? New business, old business, funny business, anything? Okay,
All right, thank you.
everybody, thank you very much for your time. Everybody can man central downstairs. Great job tonight. Appreciate it. And everybody at home, don't touch that dial. Tune in next time, 2 weeks from tonight, for another exciting meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. And we will call this meeting closed. We will adjourn. Thanks, people.
Okay.